Hello and welcome. We have another conversation about adoptions and preparation for the upcoming film, Mio Posto Tavola. I am very excited to welcome my friend, Jenna Lee Kim. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing so well. And people
It's
should know that it is nighttime for me. It
uh-huh.
is morning for you.
Yes,
So that is
hence
why I am drinking a
the
glass of wine
wine
and you are
glass,
not.
and I am not yet. Depending on how this conversation goes, I might be starting.
Listen, no judgment. It's why they make mimosas. It's why brunch culture is a thing.
Right. I knew there's a reason I needed orange juice in the house. So
And champagne.
yes, yes. I'm so excited to talk to you because whenever we talk, only good things come from it. So let's start. So you're going to also be asking me some questions, which is fun. So this will be a
Yes.
two-way, literally a two-way interview conversation, right?
Yes.
So would you like to start, or would you like me to start?
Why don't you start?
Well, I start. All right, I can do that. So both of us are adoptees. And I always am curious about the the first time that you knew, that we were told or we found out or whatever. So would you tell us how and when you learned that you were adopted?
Yes. No one has ever actually asked me this question
Really?
before. So this is exciting. Yeah. So I'm an intercountry, transnational, transracial adoptee. So my parents are German, English descent, and I am Korean. And so my whole life, I have always just known, I've always just known that love makes a family. We wanted a baby, we wanted a daughter, and we met so and so at church who adopted a little girl from Korea, which is what gave us the idea. And one thing led to another, and we chose you, and you're here. And so for many, many years, I really thought about my life beginning at the time I thought 11 months old on that airplane. So it was almost like I at JFK International Airport was my hospital. The airplane was the birth canal, and here I am, into my mother's arms, you know, on that day when I was almost a year old. So, and it was interesting to me when people would ask because I was just it's everything about your own life is so normalized for you.
Hmm.
So when people would ask questions, it would really confuse me. Like it's because for me, this is very normal. And so in some ways it was almost like people were seeing things that I wasn't. And in other ways, just pointing things out to me that were a little bit unusual and against the grain, but to me were just so interesting. So I would almost say to them as I got a little bit older, well, you don't think about the hospital room that you were born in. You don't think about the doctor who delivered you. So why would I think about any of those details about my life? Of
Right.
course, slightly different.
That's really interesting about the like where life begins. It's a different twist on that, right? Yeah.
Yes, and it makes it even more insert whatever word you want to use when you're almost 40 and realize, holy cow, maybe all of that stuff about adoption did impact my life in ways that I was avoiding and not thinking about for 4 decades. And little things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I've experienced the same
Mm.
20 plus years later. Um, that it's like, well, oh, that probably did affect who I am. I thought I dealt with that. I thought I was done with that. No.
And I just read about this the other day because, and adoption still is has a really specific narrative in pop culture. And when you're from a country that in the 90s no one was talking about, like Korea, I mean, it just wasn't, there were no Koreans on TV, there were no Asians on TV. And so you're also just thinking, well, this just must not be important. There's lots of things pushing us against thinking about our own lives in a critical way. Many, many, many. So I'm letting us off the hook is what I'm saying.
I appreciate that. How about
You're welcome.
anytime I can get a permission or a pass, I'm there. Your turn for the question.
Okay, what should we start off knowing about you?
Hmm. I am, I think, a poster child for trying to live a life of gratitude.
Mhm.
Because when I was told, and when it was the first conscious thing I knew that was being adopted, it was presented as being selected, as you described, being chosen, when I knew that before that I wasn't chosen. And so
Mhm.
my response was, "Well, this is wonderful. I need to be grateful. I need to be in gratitude, not just thank you, but living in gratitude." And that's a hard life to keep up, constant gratitude.
When do you think that you were consciously aware that that's was the film over your life? I mean, when did that
Last year.
rise to the level? Okay. Yes.
Well, let's say this. When I started the journey process of the film, all these things that probably I had considered or thought of became crystallized in this
Mm-hmm.
new realm of awareness. And I was like, oh, I was like super achiever because I was grateful. I was doing 5 million things at the same time because I wanted to prove that I deserved to be adopted and that my parents didn't make a bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I've always been trying to do a lot, but I thought most of that was because, you know, growing up Catholic, idle mind is the devil's workshop. That was the saying. And so I'm like, all right, I'll keep busy. I'll do good things. I won't just sit at a bar and, keep busy. I'm going to keep busy doing good things. But coming around to really looking at who I am and why I am the way I am in this last year and a half has really kind of, yeah, maybe it's because, you were thinking you had to pay back for all the gifts that you have.
Did that bring you some of this is a broad strokes question, but coming into consciousness about those things, did that make you feel some comfort? Like, oh, I have some maybe answers to maybe some restlessness I've been feeling my whole life, or did it make you want to run away, or some combination of the two?
There was a bit of regret.
Hmm.
Like, I'm supposed to be a smart person. Why didn't I figure this out sooner? Right? It's like, hello, whoa.
Yes.
It's probably obvious to everybody else, but could you have told me? Could somebody have said, hmm, maybe you can give yourself a break and chill if you understood this? And maybe people have, but I don't think people really understood it either. I mean, my
Hmm.
therapists, plural, over the years, oh, let's try to,
Yeah, but you have three a week. Is that what you mean?
yeah, yeah, right. I mean, they could have figured this out or helped me. And they did it different ways, but yeah. So it is bringing peacefulness to me, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm old now. Like I wish I would have known that. Yeah.
See, this is why these conversations are important and validating. I'll just speak personally
Yeah.
because that's the exact answer that I would have given and have given. I don't, I'm like, is it arrogance? Is it overconfidence? Yet I have a lot of low self-worth. So that's a little bit contradictory. Well, I'm sorry. 3 years ago, I thought I was a white girl from Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Nobody could have explained to me, like really explained, like actually, that being Korean means you have birth parents which means you might have family out there. I mean, so I let us off the hook a little bit because no one was explaining that. Nothing was explicit. We had all these coping skills. But again, I really considered myself very with it, like the Alexis from Schitt's Creek. Like, I have it all together.
Love
I have
her.
it all together.
Right.
I have it all together. If David, I have it all together. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and
So,
that false bravado isn't always false. We do have it all together at various moments and in various aspects of our awareness.
mm,
So
mm.
it's almost like selective having it all together because right? I mean, we
Yeah.
can't do it all. Oh, contrary to our belief in ourselves that we should be able to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm
So
learning,
true.
right? I mean, like take Maslow. I know how is he going to work this in, right? Take Maslow, for example, and his hierarchy of needs for motivation. He says that we're never self-actualized. Well, I'm sorry, Abraham. I think we can be self-actualized in certain aspects of our life. Because it's kind of depressing if you go through your whole life and you're never self-actualized around anything. Because remember, that's the pinnacle of his pyramid, of his hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can be self-actualized. I think we can got it all going in certain aspects at certain times.
That's true. It's baby steps.
One of the
Yes.
funniest movies and one of the most profound. Did you ever see it? It was Bill Murray and oh, who is it? He was the other guy was a doctor or a psychiatrist, and Bill Murray was
What
his
about Bob?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
And it was he wrote this
great movie.
book. It was like called Baby Steps, and it was so simple, but it was like, yes, it's so true. Everything it happens in baby steps, and it is progress.
Yeah, see, this is where there's I know that you talk about our age difference, but I have a brother who is 8 years older than me. And so I we bridged the gap a little because I'm also a little bit of a my parents raised me on older music and older
Right,
movies.
right,
This is why this is where it's gonna come together for us.
right, right.
Yeah.
All right, so my next question is just gonna go right
Mm,
to
okay, bring it. I'll drink more wine.
it. It might be a yeah, it might be definitely a wine gulp. Um, what if, from what you were experiencing either growing up or even now, what has
Mm.
been the most challenging aspect of being an adopted child?
That was gonna be my one of my questions for you, so you can answer it next too.
Okay,
Um,
absolutely.
for me, and this answer, of course, could change 10 years from now,
Mhm.
but related to what we were just talking about, um, there's the reason they say that none of this is linear is because, and this is happening now more than ever in everything, it feels like in politics, all kinds of things throughout the world, because something is happening and 12 people see it, and there's a different perspective based on each person's lived experience, seeing the exact same thing. So when that's happening in your own life to you and you're seeing it, the same thing from a different perspective in every phase of your life. So one example I can give is that I did have this great opportunity to go to a heritage camp through my adoption agency when I was at a really prime age. I think like 12 to 15. I went for 1 week in North Jersey in the middle of the woods with a bunch of other Korean adoptees and adoptees from other Asian countries. And of course, none of us got together to talk about the fact that we were adopted kids. It was mostly a camp. You know, we were kayaking, we were doing crafts. There was some Korean culture stuff like worked in, but mostly we were just there to meet boys. I mean, let's be honest. And
That's
so
where I would have been there.
yeah, exactly.
For the same
We
reason.
have this in
I
common.
didn't know it. I didn't know it then, but that's why I would have been there. Sorry, I digress.
No, but I mean, but it's true. I mean, the amount of adoptees you talk to who also have intercountry adoptee siblings,
Hmm.
and they're grown up in the same house and they don't talk about it. So that's a topic for a different question. But so for years, I've been saying I really am grateful for this camp because it normalized, my life in a way and seeing other kids and etc. Now I look at it and I still feel gratitude for the relationships that I built in that experience because I'm sure it did something to get me through those years. But what it also did was normalize it in a way that I think stunted me and prevented me from really thinking about it critically until much later. Because again, for instance, when I found out that there were podcasts about adoptees, I literally, this is 3 years ago. I mean, this is not like 1992. I was literally thinking, what do they have to talk about? What could they possibly have to talk about? Because it was just so, you know, it was so normalized for me. So it's like this camp did a different thing, looking back on my life. So back to your question, the hardest thing has been turning over every stone in my life, in my brain, in my personalities, in my preferences, in my strengths, in my challenges, in life events, decisions I made, people I dated, jobs I mean, because when something hits you so hard, like, oh crap, I'm Korean and I have a birth family that I just never thought that I should have been smart enough to think maybe they're out there and I should look for them.
Hmm.
When something that huge comes across your brain, uh, you can't help but think, what else did I miss? What else was staring me in the face? What other mistakes have I made? What else am I not looking into? Do I even know what love is? I mean, it this is not maybe true of everybody, but this is the deep path that I went on. And so that's why I asked you the question about, did it help you with your comfort or did it help you just become more restless? Because I'm sometimes not quite sure where I am yet. So right back at you. Is your answer similar or is it different?
It is. I think. I think it's also. I have tried not to use excuses for behaviors, my
Sure.
behavior. I've tried to really own what I've done or what I've not done. And so
Mhm.
I would never have naturally looked to adoption because, well, okay, it's a gift. It happened. Why are you whining about it? Why are you dwelling on it?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
do what you need to do now and go forward. And it's just not that simple.
Mhm.
It wasn't that simple to, because I do believe in self-initiation, being proactive, hitting, confronting, addressing whatever it is I need to address without making excuses.
Mhm.
So I had to reframe, and what I've found I'm doing in the last 2 years or so is doing a lot of reframing that understanding what has come from being adopted, good and not so good, is not making excuses for behavior.
Mhm.
It's actually grounding them in a different place. As
Mhm.
you know, because insecurity looks like insecurity. Like, I wasn't confident in certain aspects of relationships or, so many things. Well, but there's a reason for that. When abandonment is the first experience you have, then you're
Mhm.
going to question a lot of things. And so that insight and that understanding was really, really helpful now. um, but not as an excuse, as a. I always used to say to students, I don't want to hear your excuses. You can give me an explanation, but I don't want to hear
Mm.
an explanation is I didn't do this assignment. I had I chose to do this because my family needed me to do something and I'm like, all right, okay, you're still going to lose points, but I get it. And you can now submit it, even though I said you might not be able to submit. But because you gave me an explanation, as opposed to the old, my dog ate my homework.
Hmm.
Right. So I think that coming to that insight has been such a challenge for me because I didn't know that's really what that was a reasonable path because it looked too much like an excuse.
Mm. Hmm. Do you know what all of this is? Because I'm going
Mhm.
to tell you.
Okay. I'm
This is
hoping.
also being this is also being hardwired for however we ended up here to just be really hard on ourselves. Um, when I read back over journal entries at the start of all of this and the amount that I'm just beating myself up over, I mean, needlessly about
Mhm.
things, and to what end? To my own personal journal, beating myself up. Um, so I think that there's some of that too. We have to give ourselves, this is an overused expression now, but we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace as well. And we're the least likely to do that for us.
I
Um,
like that saying. I don't think we can use it enough. The
Probably you're right.
notion of grace, just saying it gives me peace,
Yeah.
right? It just makes me feel like, okay, I can be human. It's okay to be human.
I literally had a really good friend say to me not too long ago, we're sitting at dinner. I love this woman so much. And she leans across the table and I can tell something's coming. She's going to say something to me. And she goes, Jenna, you're 40, whatever. Chances are you're going to make another mistake again in your life. And I was like, I'm like horrified. No,
I love her.
let it not be true. Just like because I have made so many uh, errors in judgment and decisions personally. And yeah, it's really hard. But so that you reframing it that way is good because yeah, it's an explanation, not an excuse, but an explanation. Um, I'll have to think about that a little bit more. But you're right. It's difficult when it's yourself. It'd be easier to tell a friend. We can just tell each other. I'll
Okay,
tell you. You tell
that's a
me.
great. I definitely I'm up for that. We
Perfect.
talk about how hard we are, so I was going to say my next question because we talk about how hard we're on ourselves, and I certainly can relate to that. At the same time, we do achieve a lot,
Yeah.
and I think it would be really helpful for our audience to hear just how much you have achieved, Mayor, Mayor Jenna, and
Hmm.
so I know this might be uncomfortable, but I want to hear your 2-minute pitch about what a great person and full of achievement that you really are. Yeah.
Oh,
I know, I
okay.
know, I know. Go.
Oh boy. Um, okay. Well, so I have a writing degree from a little liberal arts school in central Pennsylvania, and I went on to pretty immediately run a student conduct system for that school. And what that means is that as a 24-year-old, I was expelling kids from school for breaking the code of conduct. I was also revising the code of conduct in the student handbook, making all the policies and procedures. And by the way, that is the era when Sandusky, if you don't know that name, Google it, happened and higher education went into a tailspin within like a year. And so then it was, okay, well, you have one of the biggest jobs on campus. And by the way, you're one of the only people of color on staff, and you're super young and you look like a student. Uh, so we're probably not going to pay you as much as we should. However, you're going to now do all of the Title IX stuff with all of the sexual assault investigations and proactive programming, education, etc. It was it was so easy. So then, after I decided, well, maybe this isn't maybe just because I'm good at this is not, this doesn't mean that this is the job for me. I went on to become I went back to sort of at the, I went back where it's a little bit to start off as an entry level fundraiser for a different liberal arts school, and just loved my life for a year. Like the amount of pressure that just felt like an ease. And I had this great team, both institutions. I had these amazing teams I got to work with. And then I decided that if I was going to have a baby, I should leave my career as a very highly overachieving person. That's the story for another time, and be a full time caretaker for our kids. And so, about 6 months in, I was real itchy. I mean, we're talking about someone who just has to, I was not able to articulate yet how doing leads to purpose and, a busy mind, and how that is very dangerous to have a quiet mind when there's things you're avoiding, like the fact that you're Korean. So about 6 months into that, I was living in a small borough outside of Philadelphia, and literally, I loved the show Parks and Recreation, and my partner at the time said they're looking for someone to be on Parks and Rec. You should apply. And I said I could plan an Easter egg hunt once a year. I could do that. So I went and I applied for this volunteer position, of which I was very nervous. And at the time, I mean, these are all my friends now, but it was so funny because at the time I just thought it was standard operating procedure. They said, why don't you come out and meet the president and the vice president of council? And I was, oh, okay. So I went out, and this was another lean across the table situation. The president, who's a friend of mine now, was like, we were wondering if you would consider running for mayor. And I said, I did like a if this was a sitcom, I'd do a spit take. And all my friends that I told, they laughed and laughed, because I'm like I'm the least political person still that I know. Um, but it turns out when you want to do a good job in politics, you should actually not really like politics, in my opinion, because the reason you get into politics is because you really want to do right by whatever population and jurisdiction that you're serving, and you don't care about getting reelected. You're just trying to help the people. I mean, that's easier said than done.
Well, that's called
I
servant
understand.
leadership. That's what Robert Greenleaf called servant leadership. The
Okay.
desire to serve brings one to leadership. It's not that I want to lead first. It's first I want to serve. And yeah,
Mm.
yes, I'll take on that position because the way I can serve is through that position. It's exactly what you're saying.
Oh, well, that's cool. See, I always learn something from you. So I was the first woman mayor to serve in this borough. I think it was 140-ish years old at the time. So that was pretty neat. We had a great team.
Let me
Um,
stop you one sec
yeah.
because I told you this. I had a high school friend that I was at a party, a picnic at, and she's from your area, and you met her and came to her store, and she went on for at least 15 minutes. I was like, "Are you done yet?" I mean, I know she's great. How much of a positive impact you had on her, but also on their community, your community in your role.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, I was like, how is this that we just happened to be talking about and happened to talk about you and happened to, and it was just amazing. And I was like, yep, that makes sense to me. That's the
It's the
Jenna that
simulation.
I'm coming to know.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Funny. Your turn.
I have a question for, yeah, I
Yep.
do. I have a question for you now. Okay. Because and this is really hard for Enneagram 3 personality types to understand,
Okay.
but because the journey never ends. That's another bumper sticker thing. Enjoy the journey. It's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah, right.
Um, in the journey that never ends, where do you think you are in your, I want to say identity journey,
Hmm.
but you're 98 years old, you're looking back at this time, where do you think you are?
Hmm. Hope I think I want to be farther than I am currently. And where I am currently is putting pieces together um, that are that are syntonic, that are good with my ego and my personality, and ego in a healthy way. That
Mm,
I see adoption very as a very complex, amazing um, social construct that
hmm.
has given me so many opportunities, that showed me love, that created a life that I would definitely not have had. And
And
yeah, no buts.
and
And I can also see the pain, suffering, challenges, emotional, psych, mind, not psychic, but mental, psychological, that have really, it's kind of funny because I'm going to say held me back. But if you look at my life, you'd be like, what the heck is he talking about? He's done all these things. What is he whining
yeah,
about? And I'm not whining. I'm not whining. But I have to say that because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that this whole film thing is going to look like a vanity project. Oh, poor him. And it's like, no, it's not that. It's it's where I am now is to say this is what I'm learning, and I want to share that because maybe you might be learning that too, or need to learn that, or want to learn that, even if you're not adopted. So I really want to give the respect to those other things after the and, as much as I give respect to the gifts that I've been bestowed upon from adoption. And that in no way is making one or the other better or worse. I just need to see the complete picture of it because I'm a very emotional, but also the academic part of me is very logical. And I want to understand as much as I can understand. I want to have as much information. And I think that's what the next X number, 30 some whatever years forward will be, hopefully, is to really do the work to put those in the proper perspective so they don't hold me back the next section or segment of my life.
there is comfort though in, I mean, everything's a balance. So going too far one way or the other is detrimental, but there is comfort in being analytical and thinking about some things, whether it's historical or theory based, and then putting it aside and leading with your heart.
It just does a number on you though when you react to the emotional piece before you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to
Mm-hmm.
do that a lot. And so I need to temper, and I'm blessed with my tribe or my village who's like, yes, you want like maybe take a breath. Like maybe that's not the whole story. Maybe maybe there's more to this, and maybe you should like breathe. Try breathing. It's like, no, I don't have time to breathe. I'm too I'm too busy emoting and reacting. It's like so
By the way, go ahead.
okay. By
I
the
was
way,
going to say, just as a sidebar, because you've mentioned this being a little afraid, like, I don't want this film to come off as like a vanity project. And if you are even saying that out loud, it means you have some self-awareness that like a lot of people don't have. And I just guarantee it's not going to be
thank you.
that way. It's just not because you probably in fact you've probably overcorrected and we're gonna watch it and go, wait, where were you in it? I'm just kidding. But like
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
it's gonna be beautiful. I'm so excited.
I want to know
Yes.
who or what is the change that you want to be around adoption?
Oh boy. Um, I want to be. Um, a lot is happening currently. This is April 2025 is when we're recording this.
Right.
The Korean government just put out its 3-year investigation results of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, looking into Korean adoptions. So the government investigating itself, which is a huge, huge deal. And so these hot off the press, end of March. So 2 weeks ago, this happened. And they found, none of us are shocked, although, but it is were they going to
Acknowledge.
uh, hold themselves accountable? Yeah, were they going to acknowledge it, right? And they did. They said the Korean government bears responsibility for, and I think there's actually a quote, I believe, in the official report, treating babies like luggage, um, human welfare violations, uh, you know, allowing private agencies to profit off of children, coercion, corruption. I mean, they didn't go real heavy into a lot of this, but it was enough to acknowledge that these things were happening. So it remains to be seen what is going to happen from this report. Maybe nothing. The report could be the report, and that's it.
Huge
So
step.
what it does, yeah, it's a huge step coming off of the really very well done Associated Press PBS Frontline documentary that came out in the fall. So because I center myself in my own story, trying to, the fact that this is all happening 3 years after I accidentally find my birth father and then move to Korea and all, in rapid fire succession. The other thing that's happening is that this summer, and I don't actually know how long this has been in the works, but in the summer of 2025, they're saying in an effort to consolidate and streamline record keeping, the Korean government is taking control forcibly of all adoption records from all private agencies that did exist. Now, the problem with that is so many of these baby homes that, again, there was no oversight from the government. And all of these baby homes were privately owned. And there were a lot of floods and fires. And if, Mr. Kim decides he doesn't want to have this baby home anymore, then who knows where those records are? They could be in someone's basement or thrown away at this point. And we don't know how this is exactly going to look. Are you going to have the staffing in the internal central government when people come looking for their information? Is it going to be lost? How long are people going to wait? And so as you can imagine, there's a lot of distrust right now. And there was already a little bit of distrust. And now there's validation for some of those feelings that aren't just feelings, but real hard facts that babies were taken off the streets and birth
This is
mothers were told that their babies died. And yeah,
this is
yeah. And so in this feel good, we wanted a baby to make our family whole and we love you and you were chosen. And your origin story might be one that is a nightmare or one that we may never even know. When it comes to my piece, back to your question, my whole thing has just been when I started this journey, it was really good that I was easily able to find people like me who were just very simply telling their stories and very simply okay with me reaching out to them because I didn't find any comfort in finding information about myself right away. All I wanted to do was get in my car and run away, thinking it would just be easier to just start over. Because what am I going to do with all this? So finding people who could say some of the things like you're saying, so I didn't feel nuts. I have all of this, some of this separated into nice, tidy little rows now, but this is after many months of intense therapy and constant reflection and upending my life, quite frankly. So, in the effort to personally survive, I think I just want to be one tiny little cog in the wheel that is somebody that is there to listen. It's the same thing I was doing as mayor. I wanted anybody to be able to come to me, and I will be an advocate for whatever you're looking for. And if I can't do it, I'll point you in the right direction. So that's adoptive parents, that's siblings, friends, allies, people who just want to know and listen. So I wouldn't call myself one of the people who's putting together, you know, petitions and taking to the streets, but I do want to be somebody that is accessible to people.
It's a great contribution to us, to community. Um, and in fact, it's how we connected because, and I wanted to do a shout out to Alana Hook because
Alana.
absolutely, because of her is we've connected, and that's what she does is connect people,
Yes.
and that's what
Hmm.
we're trying to do. And you're right. We have different ways of actualizing that, and that's great. That's great. You know, the it's a little disturbing when I tell you that, or you know this, but when we kind of underscore that my adoption situation is pretty similar. I was part of the baby
Yes.
era from 1950s to the 1970s,
Hmm.
but did the same thing. The church, the Catholic Church, the Italian government, the US government coordinated is a nice way of saying it.
Hmm.
And parents were told their kids, mothers were told their kids died or they were taken, or it's best in the best interest of everyone to remove the sin, the stain of this sin, unwed marriage, unwed motherhood. Yeah. So what are we learning? Like, why is this still happening 40, 50, 60 years later?
Yeah. And we have a lot of we have a lot happening in the world right now. And it and this is all, I believe, truly. It is said with good intention when people sort of off the cuff say, look at all those babies. I just want to adopt them all and give them a loving home. I mean, that is said with true compassion and love, and I get it. But that is the narrative that we should separate families and you're better off somewhere else in a place that we believe is better suited and more familiar, more familiar and blah blah blah. I mean, truthfully, and this is like a year ago, I was watching a different documentary that said something like, you can be poor and love your children. And I was like, oh, that can't be true. That is not, that's not the narrative that I grew up with. And again, this is not anything conscious. Like nobody is,
Oh,
I
no, I
was,
get it.
those words were not in my brain, but when somebody says something very obvious, and so if we can start to flip the script a little bit, get away from the modern family, Sex in the City, we're gonna adopt this brown baby and no one ever talks about it again.
In fairness to the whole story, the church, the Catholic Church has started to take responsibility. From like
Okay.
2016, they apologized to women in the UK, and 2000, just 2024, the Pope apologized to Belgium. You know, they haven't taken responsibility that for what they did in Italy, which is interesting. It was the
Hmm. Hmm.
Vatican adoption program, which is what I went through. So there's attempts, and I think this Pope really, really wants to. He has so many challenges, and God bless him because I think he's doing the best possible thing he can as a human being, but oy, the challenges ahead. But so I think there's some acknowledgement, like the government of Korea, like you're talking about. There's some acknowledgement, and that's a good step. But it's only one step. That's only the first step.
It's the
Like
first step.
we, what we do is another step in the right direction, but it's not, I think it's the granule community, the a realistic way of change occurring happens like this, with conversations, with just talking about things that haven't been discussed. So I feel like that's really, really, really valuable and important. And I want more done. I want institutions to look at what they're doing. Because we know about the intentions. We get it. Yes, the intentions were good. that's not cutting it for me. That's not enough.
And yeah, it's not enough anymore. It's so back to what you were saying before, because I was listening to your interview on, I think it was The Making of Me, right? Is that the podcast?
Yeah,
So you were
yeah.
giving a brief overview of the history, and like you said, I'm listening to it going, oh, he's talking about Italy because he very easily could have been talking about Korea. And now, and I am not aware of the different histories in Vietnam, Thailand, Colombia, Brazil. I mean, I don't know how many countries that, and some of these folks are just so China closed its doors to international adoption the end of the summer, beginning of the fall.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Korea is next. I mean, I think it's very few anyway.
We can't
Mm.
perpetuate more of the same. And the only way I think we
Yeah,
can change is to stop it and see what's going on at the very micro level. And then from those micro kind of data points and bits, then we can extract from that this what was really going on as a trend or as a pattern of or as a a policy and a practice, and then we can start to make I'm not saying we destroy the whole thing because that's what's currently happening here in the US is we're taking sledgehammers to everything. Should change happen? Sure. There are ways to make change happen without bullying and without a sledgehammer.
let me give you a really good example, agreeing with what you're saying, because there have been attempts, of course. I mean, so Korean adoption has been going on since 1955. So there have been attempts throughout the years to shift. And now who knows what the main motivations for some of this is. But one example is at some point they said, okay, listen, babies are only going to be eligible for adoption if we know who their parents are. Now, that's positive for all kinds of reasons. One, later we can know what their records are if they come asking. Two, we know this baby was not stolen off the streets. Three, but here's what the oversight was, and it was huge. And actually, people who made these laws live in Korea, so I'm not sure how they didn't figure this out. There's no way that they totally underestimated the deeply rooted family structure, conservative Confucian thing. So when you say, now we need the name of the birth mother, guess what happened? Then birth mothers were just abandoning their babies even more because there's no way they were going to give their name to a government who they were afraid were going to like tell their families that I've had this baby out of wedlock and now I have no future in a patriarchal society of ever getting married and being supported. So it was just like, here's this thing that was done, and here is the impact and the effect that it had because you weren't reading the room on your own culture and what would happen. So to your point about taking a pause, okay, try something, but then really see what the consequence is.
What would be the solution in that case, though, in the context of Korean culture?
In the context of Korean culture, it's going to take a long time, and I believe that I want to hope that they're doing this now. It's trying to get at and putting money towards social welfare programs for single moms and all of that. Now, the ironic part is that in Korea, we're having a super low marriage and birth rate. It's like Korea and Japan or the world, we're having no babies over here. No one's getting married, no one's having babies.
Okay.
And there's a lot of reasons for that, I think. But if you're able to start I mean, Korea is so good at this. It's not an accident that K dramas and K music and K food and K beauty are all over the world. And you're telling me that you can't do some sort of campaign in your own country that supports single moms and single families and children in like flipping the script and making that a little bit less of I won't say sin, but less of a bad,
Bad thing.
thing in your culture. So I think that there are things that can happen. I'm just not sure where that
It's
effort is.
yeah, and it strikes me because we tried to get support from a national adoption centered organizations? Crickets, zero.
For your film.
And
Mm.
of course, started out being frustrated with that, and then I started thinking about why.
Mm.
Well, if we go by what you just said, that might mean fewer adoptions.
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
that might mean if we watch my film, you might be more upset about how adoptions are done and not consider adoption. So there's a threat, and it's always self-interested. I just find, even in
Hmm.
the best intentions of, a not-for-profit social advocacy organization with the clout of some
Hmm.
of that they have, that this is going to hurt our business.
Yes.
Ah, hello. Your business is not your business. Your business is helping in the adoption of kids. You got to do the right thing. And the right thing is what's best for adopted families, the triad, the birth family and the adoptive family and the adoptee. What's the best for them? Not what's the best for your bottom line and fundraising efforts. I'm sorry. I have lots of experience in not-for-profits, and I get it. I get the attachment piece, but I
Hmm.
also get that if we're really mission driven, then you stay focused on your mission, not on your ego,
Hmm.
organization ego in this case. I got one last question,
Sure.
and you can ask as many as you want. So, as allies for each other and advocates for each other, I want to be a voice that amplifies your voice.
Mm.
I want to know what would you like my voice to say when I'm talking and not representing you, but talking, advocating on your behalf, what would that message be?
Oh, what a nice question. First of all, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, one of the other things I say, and this is not just true of us, it's true of everyone, but particularly those of us who have a couple of these qualifiers to us,
Right.
intercountry adoptees. There's more to your story than you think that there is. Um, and I think that's really important for a few reasons. Number one is that because nobody was telling me, no one was knocking on my door and saying, "Did you know that you could maybe find your birth family?" I just I just didn't know. So there was more to my story than I thought. Then there is a little bit, and I understand why. There's this, it's so wonderful. You met your birth family. Okay, we can wrap it up and get the cameras out of here, move on. And it is not a fairy tale. And what I will say, and I am grateful. I am. There's a lot of hope here. I have one of the best reunion stories that I've heard of, and I have listened and talked to so many people. Everyone is really well intentioned and is really eager and is really open. Everyone, and it's still really, really hard. And that's from me living over here, seeing as an example, my birth father like 8 times now. And I still feel like because of the language and the generational stuff, and there's just, there's just so much that is so hard to communicate or understand. Um, and some of that is, I have a hard time talking to my parents who speak the same language as me about topics. So, I mean, there's a lot there, right? But I guess I would just say, in summation, it is so much more complicated than people think. There's more to your story, everyone's, than we know. And I think it takes a lot to understand that there is no rule book for life, but especially when you're doing things like meeting birth family. There's no, there's you. we want to, there's a lot of urgency. You want to play catch up right away. You want to make up for lost time. You want to do everything now. You want to do it all perfectly, and you want it to all just go a certain way. You want to get all the questions answered. You're never going to have all the questions answered. You're never going to do it all perfectly. It's going to be clunky every step of the way. And you're going to think that you have it, and then it's going to all go to crap the next day. And all of that is just really normal. And so, for people who are not in the adopted space and are just sort of interested in the stories, for them to just understand, you don't need to memorize this, this, and this, and the history. And just please be aware that it is way more complicated than you think it is. It is way more complicated than, oh, we have this baby who needed a home. I mean, it is that and all these other things. And so if we can move the needle just that much, that last thing that I said, if we can move it like a hair, by the time my kids are my age, I feel like that'd be something where someone hears adoption and they go, okay, I don't know a lot about that, but I know it's complicated. That's as much as people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I like to ask I like to ask everybody, what does belonging mean to you? What does it mean to belong?
Feeling like I haven't belonged,
Mm,
and especially, like what you just described is really the what in film we call inciting incidents. The first time you get bullied, the first time you are treated, discriminate, and that sets the movie off in a different trajectory because that happened. It's like when driving along, oh, there's an accident. Okay, now I am, my story is different. So
mhm,
for me, like when I think about the inciting incident, it was death. It was the death of my parents. It was the death of my dog. It was the grief, and it was the realization that I had family. I don't have family.
mhm.
And, I know it sounds a little trite, but you feel like you're an orphan again.
Yeah.
And so, and even having I have so many supportive people and friends and people I call family who are friends, that I chose, and you still feel like you don't belong. And
Mm,
so I think coming to terms with the intellectual, the stuff, the history, the facts, that helps me feel more connected. I
mhm,
didn't really know a lot about my siblings and the experiences they've had and the challenges and suffering that they went through and the birth parents went through. That helps me feel more connected and belong to their story,
mm,
which has
mhm,
really been helpful because it's not just about me. It never has been. But it is like this is sparked by me and my need to belong because I'm a very social being. But I think even if you're not a social being, even if you're an introvert, we still need to feel connected to other people. It just looks different for introverts than it does for extroverts. So I think I had to reframe what is belonging. I'm so tired of reframing and it's like, can't this just be just a little bit easier? Just a little bit, right? So I am doing the work, and I feel like the more having more facts, having more information, really knowing truth. What is truth? That when my mother told me that was told I died, believing her, not believing what the records from the church said. So I had to, that helps me feel more connected. So how can you be connected to somebody that you think is lying to you?
mm,
So for me, as I always go back to teaching is my core of who I am, but as an academic, that is being really helpful. And then um, it's always about like doing something. Like I don't mind being alone or by myself. I just don't want to
mm,
feel alone. I don't want
mhm.
to feel the disconnection. And sometimes that's the reality is, single gay man in Reading is not exactly, the hub of social life. Right? So I create that, and I have to do the work to, plan ahead and have social media. But you know what? That's only a piece of it because I'm okay by myself as long as I know that I'm feeling connected to my people here, to my people there. And now I feel like this journey has really brought me more of those connections physically, like seeing people again. I hadn't seen my siblings in
Mhm.
19, but also then doing the work, not only intellectual, like facts and data, but doing the work emotionally like to be giving myself grace about what I didn't know or what I didn't get, and knowing that now, I feel much more peaceful.
Mm.
I don't know that I found my place at the table, because that's the name of the film, but
Mhm.
I find that this journey has brought me a lot of peace, which surprises me because I think
Mhm.
peace is my key to unlocking the connection. I am so grateful because I'm good at being grateful too, but I am so grateful of our friendship, of our um, interdependent support and mutual support that it's been, is it almost a year?
I don't think so. I think it's been like 6 months. I mean, I really,
Feels
it
like
has not
10
been that long.
years. Feels like 10 years.
I know. Well, and so for I like this idea of belonging and connection because no matter who you are, like you were saying, that's what you need. And I mean, if you put the two of us in a room on a stage in front of an audience, people will be like, well, what do these two have in common? And
Right.
yet there's just there's so much, and not to end on too cheesy of a note, but it's when they say it's you can't dislike someone that you're face to face sharing a story with. I mean, if we can do so much more of this, what I used to say in town is the world is made up of neighbors. We do all these things for our neighbors that are right next to each other. We can see their face, but that's what the entire world is. And it became even clearer to me when I moved across the world and I meet people now who you know, literally, I went on the playground of my kid's school. The second day of school, the dad of one of my daughter's classmates, Korean, he went to high school in Easton, Pennsylvania, which is 20 minutes where I grew up.
This is great.
Belonging and connectivity. Yeah, it's good. And I so appreciate you. It is not, in case anyone didn't know, it's not easy being a foreigner in another country, and which is what I've been for almost 2 years. And it's a struggle most days, more so than it's not. And being able to have conversations like this one and keep meeting new people like yourself and it's invaluable to me personally. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.